Another day, another adventure. Where would the railroad take us today? Hello again, rail fans. Welcome to another video of a new day in new locations. It's December 26, 2022, and we've set aside the entire day for some North Florida rail fanning around the Baldwin area. So it's daybreak at Ocala as we make our way north, paralleling the S-Line all the way to Baldwin. CSX normally shuts down operations on Christmas, and it always takes the railroad a couple of days to start back up again after its holiday break. Today we're out to see this startup and catch a few trains of interest. It's now 8 a.m. and we're coming into Hawthorne, where a green signal at the north end of Hawthorne siding indicates a southbound train approaching in the 31-degree air. In minutes we hear over the radio L743 rolling toward us, and soon after, a distant headlight and horn would follow. I guess when the weather is as cold as today, it carries the loud sounds of trains differently than what we're used to, as all trains today would have a very cool, muffled sound as they'd approach. If you don't know what I mean, just listen as 743 speeds south. L743 is a train that was created earlier this year as a southbound unit train of rock from a mine in Brownstown, Georgia to Winston Yard in Lakeland. However, as expected, it gets tangled up in Waycross with crew availability and picks up cuts of miscellaneous freight for Winston. Today's 743 only had 18 rock hoppers on it, with the rest being mixed freight, reminiscent of the old Q603, which always had a similar consist to this train. Our southbound manifest would roll towards Winston, stopping in Wildwood to drop off cars for the local customers in the area. In a moment, he'd be out of sight and out of mind, so we'd get back on the road north to Baldwin. Driving into Baldwin, we get word of M453 departing southbound as we pass the yard. Then a text from a friend let us know that today's 453 had a Canadian Pacific locomotive trailing second, so we'd make a quick U-turn on 301 and floor it south. The line would be all clear for 453, and getting a late start, it would take a bit for us to get ahead. Ducking in on a spot known as Maxville, we'd set up on a dime on the closest side, which is also backlit, just to notice my camera getting out of focus. In rail fanning, there are many factors that have to go well to get a good shot, and on this occasion, a couple of those factors wouldn't be in our favor. But you shoot what you get, and where you can get it. And I'm still happy we caught it. .453 would continue his journey south as we packed up and headed north. Our train of the day would be clearing Folkestone at the time, so it would be a mad dash to Bryceville, where early in the morning I had selected our photo spot. Pulling in and setting up, there would be a high green signal for our southbound, now passing Callahan. Good morning, everybody. We are in Bryceville currently, just north of Baldwin. It's a crossover for this double track that runs from Callahan into Baldwin and then all the way south to, I think, Stark. We're waiting on a B831 loaded ethanol for Tampa. It's got quite the power lash up, but it is 36 degrees right now. It is quite the chilly day, and it's just a day to rail fan around the Jacksonville area and catch all of the trains that CSX postponed yesterday for the Christmas festivities. So here we wait in Bryceville, and that B831 should be here in the next 10 minutes or so. Hearing B831 clear Crawford and then Tahoma, we'd get all of our cameras set up and focus in preparation for this uncommon catch. In minutes, the distant horn of 831 would break the silence with the train showing its face only a few minutes later. Wow, that's all I can say. By far one of the most unusual but amazing consists I've ever caught, B831 would attract a bunch of rail fans as it made its way south for obvious reasons. With the Western Maryland Heritage sticker locomotive up front, 3 locomotives from 3 different railroads would trail. In the second position would be Norfolk Southern 9597, a 1990s era CW44-9, and probably only its first or second coat of paint. Behind that would be Union Pacific SD70M number 4023, an ex-Southern Pacific locomotive that, from the looks of it, has been freshly repainted not very long ago. By far the best engine in the consist, however, would be the fourth and final unit, BNSF 9830, an EMD SD70 Mac built in March of 1997, in its original Burlington Northern executive paint scheme. The word on this unit and its unique paint scheme begins in 1990 when Burlington Northern, at that point a separate railroad from Santa Fe, painted a couple of newly acquired E and F units for their executive business car train. In 1993, BN began receiving the start of their order of 428 of these Sharp SD70 Macs for use in their bustling Powder River Basin coal operation. The railroad decided to paint these new locomotives in this stunning scheme to show off the pride and splendor of their railroad shortly before the merger with Santa Fe. Into the days of BNSF, the railroad would be very stingy with these locomotives leaving home rails, until within the next 20 years, the engines would become faded and old. With the majority of these repainted and put into storage now, it's an uncommon sight to see these in the heart of the BNSF, much less acting as foreign power. It's been over 4 years since one of these locomotives entered the state. This would be my first ever catch of an executive Mac, making this B831 one of my favorite catches ever. We watch B831's 101 cars disappear into the distance before packing up and again heading north towards our final destination for the morning. The action would halt for an hour or so, giving us plenty of time to hang out with a couple other rail fans that were also set up at Crawford. My friend Elijah told me that there was an X202 planned out of Baldwin and would be departing soon. What we didn't know was that 202 was already halfway between us and Bryceville, and by the time we noticed, he was calling clear signals all the way through Crawford. The lack of road crossings and signals along CSX helped trains sneak up on you, and this 202 would be silent as he barreled north. With a nice K5LA on the lead locomotive, X202 would cruise towards Waycross, where he'll turn west towards Montgomery, Alabama. Now, usually this train has mixed freight from Sanford and Taft Yards in the Orlando area, but today this train began in Baldwin as an extra auto-rack shuttle to Louisville, Kentucky. It's an odd service design, but CSX has been doing it for a while, so it must work. Not long after, 2 trains on the Norfolk Southern popped up, approaching Crawford one after the other. We had seen them both pass Cordele earlier in the morning, with lots of foreign power, which is the main reason we came to Crawford in the first place. Here, the CSX Callahan sub crosses the Norfolk Southern's ex-GS&F main line from Valdosta to Jacksonville. The crossing can get pretty busy in the mornings and late afternoons. However, this day, the morning rush had been pushed back to lunchtime due to Christmas and the delays that it brings. First up would be the highest priority train, 29F, intermodal traffic from Chicago to Jacksonville, working Cincinnati and Austell, Georgia along the way. For those of you that aren't updated on the new NS symbol changes, this is the old 229. This would be a nice train for rail fans, as 2 Union Pacific GE locomotives would power this train south. With UPS and miscellaneous traffic for Simpson, 29F is always the highest priority train in the area, as it also carries a cut of containers for FEC's Bowden Yard in Jacksonville, located across the St. Johns River. It would be a handful of minutes before the southbound NS signal upgraded again, displaying another high green, this time for a manifest freight. Running south from Atlanta to Jax would be NS 321, the old 221, freight for the FEC with auto racks for Westlake, a massive automobile ramp just north of Simpson Yard. A big thanks to Elijah for all the info on NS. You can find him here on YouTube as Jacksonville FL Railfan.
Norfolk Southern, milepost 242.0, no defects. One, clear, Crawford.
The CSX dispatcher had held a northbound freight for the two NS trains, and when 321 would clear the diamond, X85225 would get a signal to proceed north. A symbol rarely used, X852 was an extra mix freight from Baldwin to Waycross. I guess with Christmas and the lack of trains, Baldwin had an excess of freight for Waycross, and with no trains able to take it north, this extra was created as a shuttle between the two yards.
252's got to clear Crawford track 3, 705.
With 197 cars and 3 big 6-axle locomotives, this train wouldn't be stopping much, as with a consist of such magnitude, the dispatcher always tries to keep it moving. Crawford's afternoon rush would be completed with the passing of X852, so we'd get a bite to eat and make our way to Callahan. It's been a while since I've been to Callahan, where the Nahana sub out of Jacksonville meets the Callahan sub from Baldwin to create a 23-mile double-track main line through Folkston. Everything coming in and out of the state has to pass here, including trains like this I-143, intermodal traffic from Fairburn in Atlanta to Jacksonville's Duval Yard. With over 7,000 feet of priority intermodal, 143 would glide down through Callahan and onto the Nahana sub to access Duval via Dinsmore connection. It was 3 p.m. now, and with another lull coming, we depart Callahan after 143, beginning our drive south towards home. But as usual, when you least expect it, trains show up out of nowhere. That was the case with this E378, empty coal from Taft to Baldwin, where he'll tie down for the next few hours before receiving a new crew. The Baldwin yardmaster told 378 that a new crew would climb aboard in a few hours, and instead of tying it down in the yard, he'd rather them park it on the number 1 track of the SP line. That told me that E378 would back his train over the northeast connection track to tie down between the crossovers of East Baldwin and the end of the double track at Halsema. So I'd set up to watch E378 complete his unusual moves.
up and riding on the clear on the bottom. On the point there, 3198. Come on back. 20 cars.
Alright, E378, 22, locomotive 3198. Medium clear, Baldwin Tower, track 1, going south, you're clear on the rear, riding the shove, starting back 20.
Roger's clear, gates are down. 3190.
Clear across, 3190. Another 20, 3190.
Silver's for 50, 3198.
I'd sit in Baldwin for a couple of hours, listening to the church bells and silence of this small North Florida town. This is why I love railfanning up here. The air is crisp and cool, vegetation swaying in the breeze, and good train traffic is always guaranteed. Just before 5 p.m., the signal on track 3 would display a restricting aspect. The lunar white aspect tells a crew to proceed at restricted speed, which is 15 miles per hour. This told me that we had a southbound train that was going to enter Baldwin and switch the yard. Our train would be passing Folkestone now, and with only about 30 minutes of sunlight left, it would be dark by the time our train was here. So back on the road north, we'd pull off at a small crossing just north of the crossovers at 4 Acre. Those ABS signals down there are known as the distant to 4 Acre for southbounds and distant to Bryceville for northbounds. They are located exactly halfway between the two crossovers. The sunset would be beautiful this evening with a variety of colors filling the sky. This would make a perfect backdrop for our last train of the day. With light fading and the temperature dropping, M457 would crest the hill with 9,000 feet of train for Baldwin and ultimately Orlando. It was now back to 31 degrees, so we jumped back in the car and began our almost 3-hour drive back south to Tampa. I'd say it was quite an eventful day, with plenty of action and good power. North Florida never disappoints us rail fans, and today would be no exception. So I hope you all enjoyed this production, and tune in again soon to see more Florida rail fanning in the very near future. But until we meet again, this is Christian from Multicolor Films. End of transmission.